I'm a firm believer in the inside-outside advocacy role, that sometimes systems need help from the outside to help push policymakers do what they need to do. And I think that has always been a strong value of ACNJ. We've relied on our data, we've relied on our research, and I think we're a good convener in terms of bringing people together towards solutions. I don't find it very productive when your role as an advocate is to be on the attack all the time. So my name is Cecilia Zalkind, and I'm the retired president of Advocates for Children of New Jersey, which is the statewide child advocacy organization. You know, by the time the Fahim Williams case came to light, it was pretty clear that the incremental approach, or this let's build up this part, let's invest here, something more was needed, something more transformative was needed. I think everybody agreed with that. We've had some remarkable leaders over the last 20 plus years, as you said earlier, who were the right people at the right time. One to move forward on critical immediate policy, Kevin, a second in Allison to rebuild the infrastructure, and then finally a transformational leader like Christine. I think that leadership is key. And these are great examples of leadership at the right time. And you also had the support of governors of both parties along this 20-year journey. Nobody stepped in to back away from the commitment. And I think Kevin used his leadership to identify some critical policy issues that needed to be changed immediately. One was to support kinship care, because the state had not supported kinship families in the way they were supporting non-related families. The second was to extend services and support to youth aging out of foster care. To me, those were two critical decisions that helped begin to build the infrastructure. And then the issue around residential care, bringing youth home from not only residential care, but out of state. There were hundreds of kids out of state at that time. Once the new department was created, things got on track. What came with that was pretty close to a doubling of the budget that the Division of Youth and Family Services had at that time. It was significant money. It wasn't a pittance. It wasn't, let's take money from here and move it here. It was enough money to get started on reform. And I don't think we can minimize it. For years, people said, well, it's not just the money, it's also policy, it's the workforce. The bottom line is the money. And I think having that money, having the lawsuit hold legislators responsible for making sure that money stayed in the budget was key. And there was always this tension between how do we both protect children and preserve families. And initially, the focus was on finding homes for children, starting with children in foster care. The whole Adoption Assistance Act, the federal law that passed in 1978, talked about ensuring that children had homes, but the priority was always kids in foster care, and usually turned out to be adoption by foster parents. How to support families was always an afterthought. It was not a system that was designed to give families the services and supports that they needed. And I don't think I ever saw that changing. And again, that's part of my own personal self-reflection. I've come to understand that it is not necessarily a conflict, but that you can actually protect children by supporting their families. We just have had a system that has never done that. It's never provided the services that families needed. And placement out of home has always been the response to protection instead of how do we keep this family together. And I'm excited that that is the direction that Commissioner Beyer is headed, and that that's an issue that's finally being addressed. Christine has been a true transformational leader. She's taken that investment in creating an infrastructure and moved us forward, I think, far into the future, where New Jersey is really ahead of the curve nationally she set the direction that the rest of the country is going in now. ACNJ was on the outside trying to advocate for those changes, trying to raise issues, to move things forward, to contribute with our data. I think one of the other things that Christine did was to really focus on the race equity issues and take a hard look at the data. And I know ACNJ was involved in that. I think that's positive. So I think the recognition that you need to support families with what they need, not in the structure that you're willing to provide, is probably the biggest change, and one that I think Christine Beyer has taken the furthest. Our contribution was a small part of a much, much bigger effort. But from the perspective looking back, even though it's been a painful process and it's challenged some deeply held beliefs, I think we're in a really good place.